What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So I always show you guys the Senate map, and I tell you, look, Democrats, if they net 4 seats, they'll have a real chance of taking back control of the Senate. But one thing that I don't really talk about too much is 6 months ago, this wouldn't have been possible. We have seen a big change in the last 6 months. And I was talking about this 6 months ago, showing you the Senate map and saying it's going to be really hard for Democrats to take back control of the Senate. And realistically, they might be able to pick up 2 seats, but that's it. But now we're seeing a big shift. Now, after looking at a lot of the different special elections out there, we're seeing Democrats outperforming Republicans. We're seeing different candidates now that we didn't know, would be running 6 months ago. And so I want to show you the Senate map. We're going to go over it, and I'm going to explain to you in each state. We have mainly 6 states that we're looking at. Each state, why Democrats have, why there's been a change. So that's what we're going to focus on in this video. But first off, you guys can do me a favor. Please like the video. And if you're watching this video and you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the Senate map. Here we go. And so let me show you what I'm talking about when it comes to the Democrats. They didn't have a shot 6 months ago to take back control of the Senate. And the reason why they didn't have a shot to take back control of the Senate is this. When we start looking at this map, first of all, Georgia was much closer than what it is now. They were calling Georgia a toss-up. Ossoff was, he wasn't doing very well in the polling, but now Ossoff has, he's got the wind at his back, and it looks like Ossoff will be able to win in Georgia. When we look at Michigan, Michigan is an open seat. We didn't know exactly how that was going to play out, but Republicans had an opportunity to flip, and they still do have an opportunity to flip Michigan because it's an open seat. Now we look at New Hampshire. Same thing. New Hampshire is very close. And I think if we're looking at any of the 3, Georgia, Michigan, or New Hampshire, I think Republicans have the best opportunity to flip New Hampshire. But it's close. Pappas does have the lead in most of the polling. I think all the polling that I've seen, the latest polling, is showing that Pappas has the lead. But he doesn't have much of a lead. And so this will most likely be a very close race. And so that's the seats that Democrats need to defend. And so it was already going to be hard for Democrats to take back control of the Senate because they had to defend these seats, and these seats are very close when you're looking at the polling. But we started to see Democrats having a pathway to take back control of the Senate because of some of these states that are now considered toss-ups. And North Carolina is one of them. Before Roy Cooper decided that he was going to step in the race, Republicans probably would have won in North Carolina. But now that Roy Cooper's in the race, he has the advantage. Looking at the polling, he's ahead, and he will probably be able to win in North Carolina. Then when we go to Maine, Plattner has been talking for a while that he's going to be running against Collins, and we started to see a shift. And this was before Mills decided that she was going to step in the race. We started to see a shift, and Plattner started having an advantage, and Collins was struggling. And so we knew it was always going to be close. But the interesting thing happened. Mills jumps in the race, and then everybody's talking about Mills. She's 2-time governor. She really has the best chance to win. But her polling didn't show that. Plattner's polling stayed steady, and he started to increase and have a larger gap between him and Collins. And that's why we saw Mills drop out of the race. Now that Mills has dropped out of the race, we're looking at the latest polling, and it's showing us that Plattner has, I think the highest that I've seen is like 8 or 9 point lead over Collins, and Collins is the incumbent. And so now we can see a clear pathway for Democrats through Maine. And then when we go down to Ohio, before Sherrod Brown decided that he was going to run for Senate, Husted probably would have won in Ohio. Husted is the incumbent. But now that Sherrod Brown is in there, it makes things closer. And when we're looking at the polling, it reflects that. We're seeing very close polls. We're seeing Husted ahead in a few polls. We're seeing Sherrod Brown ahead in a few polls, all within that margin of error. And so this is going to be a close race in Ohio. And then when we move over to Iowa, Joni Ernst, she decided to retire. If she did not retire, she would have had the advantage because she's an incumbent. But she knew that it was going to still be tough in order for her to win because of President Trump's record. And so this is speculation, but I'm thinking she didn't want to have to go through a tough campaign. And so she decided to retire. Now that it's an open seat, that opens the door for Democrats. And so now Democrats don't have to run against an incumbent. So that incumbent advantage is out the window. And so now in Iowa, it's much closer. And Democrats, they could potentially win in Iowa. And then when we move down to Alaska, Peltola in January, I believe it was January 12th of this year, she decided to step into the race against Sullivan, who's the Republican. He's an incumbent. And even before she stepped in the race, we're looking at polling showing that she was ahead of Sullivan. Now that she's in the race, we're seeing more polling showing that she's ahead of Sullivan. And so she has a real shot of winning. She's won statewide before. She could win the Senate race in Alaska. So there's another pathway through Alaska. And then when we start talking about Texas, in the past, it was almost a given that Cornyn's going to win or Paxton's going to win. Actually, it was going to be Cornyn that was going to win. Paxton steps in the race as a Republican, running in the primary, and starts challenging Cornyn. And then Tallarico, pretty much unknown before he decided to step in the race, stepped in the race and started to gain steam. Enough energy that he was able to knock off Jasmine Crockett, who, has name recognition. And so now we're looking at Tallarico versus Cornyn or Tallarico versus Paxton. And just looking at some of the fundraising, it's amazing how much money Tallarico is able to raise. And that does say a lot. That means that we're seeing financial support coming in for Tallarico, which is a good sign. And so just looking at this map, 6 months ago, these states were not considered, I would say all of the states that we're talking about now, these six different states, they weren't considered toss-ups. They were all leaning for Republicans. But now, just based on some of the different candidates that are out there on the Democratic side and just some of the different, the climate change, we're seeing these states now up for grabs, and Democrats have a real shot of taking back the Senate as a result of this. And so I just wanted to go over this because I talk about it a lot where we're talking about looking at the Senate map. How has the Senate map changed in the last 6 months? This is how the Senate map has changed, because we're seeing Republicans struggle in some of these states. We're seeing some Republicans decide that they don't want to run. We're seeing Democrats picking up steam. We're looking at special elections that are showing Democrats are outperforming, and all of these things are benefiting Democrats. And so it's not a stretch to say that Democrats can take back control of the Senate, because when we're looking at that map is showing us there's a real pathway. There are a few different pathways that Democrats have to take back control of the Senate. So I want to know ultimately what you guys think. Do you think Democrats will have that real possibility of taking back the Senate? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more. And remember, stay informed, stay engaged, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye. So that's all we have for this video. Make sure if you guys want to send me an email, you can do that, david@thetecshow.com. Like the video, subscribe for more, and check out these videos over here for some more great content. Talk to you later. Bye.